There was a brief, aerial conflict fought between India and Pakistan during May 2025, called Operation Sindoor. It has again returned to the spotlight, following a detailed assessment by Switzerland's Center for Military History and Perspective Studies, or SEAC. This was not a long war. In fact, it was fought for only 88 hours. But it was a dense one. High-end air power, modern air defenses, escalation control between nuclear-armed states, and intense information warfare. Today, we're asking a deceptively simple question. Who won Operation Sindoor? And to answer it properly, we need to separate tactical outcomes, operational results, and strategic effects. Based on the analyses of multiple neutral observers and think tanks, including the Swiss CHPM. Let's start with the strategic context. Why Sindoor matters. Operation Sindoor did not occur in isolation. It took place in a post-Ukraine, post-Gaza security environment, where states increasingly believe limited, high-intensity force can be used below the nuclear threshold. For India, Sindoor was about restoring deterrence after a major terrorist attack. For Pakistan, it was about demonstrating that Indian escalation would be costly and contested. Both sides entered the conflict, assuming it would be short, but also knowing that perceptions of victory would matter as much as material damage. Phase 1. Opening air engagements. According to the CHPM analysis, the initial phase favored Pakistan tactically. The Pakistan Air Force executed well-prepared counter-air operations, benefiting from readiness, proximity, and focused objectives. India suffered early aircraft losses, and for a brief period, Pakistan demonstrated that it could contest Indian air operations, challenging the assumption of automatic Indian air dominance. Important clarification. This matters. Early tactical success shaped narratives, morale, and information warfare, and Pakistan exploited this effectively in the first 24 hours. But why tactical success was not decisive? Tactical success is not the same as winning a campaign. The Swiss analysis stresses a key distinction. Pakistan scored points, India controlled the game. India did not need immediate air supremacy. It needed sustained freedom of action, protection of key assets, and the ability to impose costs over time. This difference in objectives would define the outcome. Then came India's operational shift. After the opening engagements, India shifted decisively toward an integrated air strike campaign. This included layered air defense S-400, Barrack 8, Akash standoff, precision strikes, suppression of air defenses, attacks on air bases, radar nodes, and command infrastructure. Crucially, India increasingly relied on range rather than penetration, reducing exposure while increasing pressure. The CHPM assessment highlights that this phase reduced Pakistan's fighter jet sortie generation capability, not by spectacular single strikes, but by cumulative degradation. So Indian versus Pakistan, was it air superiority or air denial? One of the most important analytical points in the Swiss report is the distinction between air superiority and air denial. Pakistan aimed to deny India uncontested use of airspace. India aimed to make Pakistan's air operations unsustainable. By day 3, Pakistan could still fly, but only selectively, defensively, and at rising risk. India, meanwhile, retained the ability to strike across the theater. In military terms, that asymmetry matters. Another underappreciated element of Operation Sindoor was escalation management. India deliberately avoided deep population center strikes, sustained ground offensives, actions that would force Pakistan into a do-or-die response. This restraint was not weakness. It was signaling preserving dominance, while keeping the conflict below thresholds that would invite international or nuclear escalation. The CHPM analysis argues that escalation control itself became a strategic advantage. Finally, the ceasefire. Who blinked first? The conflict ended with a ceasefire after roughly 88 hours. This is often portrayed as mutual de-escalation, But militarily, timing matters. Pakistan sought an end. Once it became clear that air operations were becoming costlier, defensive systems were under sustained pressure. Its Air Force bases were easily targeted. India retained escalation options, coercive air campaigns. The side that preserves options usually holds the advantage. The Swiss think tank seemed to think that this was decisively in India's favor. We understand the military results now, but what about the information and narrative warfare? Information warfare played a parallel role. Pakistan emphasized early tactical wins. India emphasized long-term control and restraint. The Swiss analysis deliberately avoids propaganda claims, and instead evaluates who altered the other side's behavior. On that metric, India achieved its core aim, demonstrating that major attacks would trigger costly, controlled, conventional retaliation. But the narrative warfare had a clear winner. Pakistan, despite blinking first and seemingly asking for a ceasefire, almost any neutral media outlet following the conflict would highlight the fact that Pakistan bought down 5 or 6 Indian jets, despite the fact that tactically India ended the conflict in a superior position. Why didn't India challenge this narrative? Well, that is a question for the Indian Air Force. So who won Operation Sindoor? Let's answer directly using 3 lenses. Tactical level. Pakistan performed well early and imposed real costs. Operational level. India achieved sustained air dominance and degraded Pakistan's ability to continue fighting. Strategic level. India reinforced deterrence, controlled escalation, and ended the conflict with greater freedom of action. The CHPM conclusion is careful but clear. India emerged with a stronger overall outcome. Even if the conflict was not a clean or cost-free victory, why Sindoor matters going forward. Operation Sindoor signals a new phase in South Asian conflict dynamics. It shows that limited, high-intensity air warfare can occur without immediate nuclear escalation, but also that such conflicts are fragile, fast-moving, and dangerous. The real lesson may not be who won, but how narrow the margin for error has become. If you found this analysis useful, consider subscribing for more deep-dive military and geopolitical breakdowns. Operation Sindoor may be over, but its implications are just beginning.